sort of preset that will get me started, then I can tweak to get there. But even if you're just working off like presets to get you started, there's like thousands of presets, right? So it turns into this very, very tedious part of the process.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've spoken to people who actually like will delegate some sound design to people who kind of, and I've spoken to people who are sound designers, right? Like they like try to make amazing sounds and make presets and stuff. So it's like interesting, like that kind of stuff could even be kind of delegated, sent off to somebody else at, you know, if it's not your forte.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think, but there's a bit of that basic thing that you need to learn, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
That I think is super important. Yeah, and also I was just going to say that, like, for me, like playing the bass, it's like a similar thing because it's a tactile thing that I'm very comfortable with, and it's very like immediate. And it's just like, okay, if I pick up a bass, I know I'm going to have some sort of vibe that I could like push the song forward with, even if it's not the entire process. But if I'm stuck creatively, if I just pick up the instrument I know best, I know that like at least I'm going to be on my way. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's kind of like something I've been thinking about recently, you know?
Well,
Just kind
and
of
also
like,
to me, it happens that, you know, like if there's like a part, but if I'm trying to start something, actually grabbing an instrument that I'm not the most comfortable with gives me that extra edge, right? Because like, I can play bass very easy because, you know, like the strings translate and all that stuff, but it's like, it feels different. It gives me like an extra weight. It makes me feel and my body move or react in a different way than it would with a guitar. Or even like I'm saying, it's like, I'm not like great making synth sounds, but I'm still like decent at it. So I'll just turn on my Moog or my Juno or whatever and start playing. And that's just going to trigger an idea that wouldn't have happened with me just grabbing my guitar, even if it's the instrument that I play the best. So no, just having that flexibility, especially with like instruments, like I feel like at this point, I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to buy more gear because I do feel it's like an addiction, even though I know that I can just mix inside my computer. Like, I don't know, there's something excited about having equipment outside. But I'm trying to like, whenever I'm putting money back into this, again, I'm trying to put it into instruments just for that, you know, to just like push that creative side. Like I have enough to make things sound good now. Just bring tools that will like foster creativity and like different things, you know? Yeah.
I love that. And in terms of like guitar amps, are you cool with like, you know, in the box, you know, like just, you know, using virtual amp sims, or are you more of like a full-on amp guy or somewhere in between?
I'm definitely more of a full-on amp guy. Like I have a few amps in the live room and a couple mics just kind of like ready to go. You know, even if it's like just a 57, I always have 57 ready to go in the live room, you know, just to have that part like, again, so it doesn't stop my process. I just like turn it on,
it's ready
and
to go.
But definitely if I'm writing or something like that, or if I'm looking for something specific that I know I can do in the computer and I don't have to like run out there or grab my pedals and set them up, I'll just do it in the computer with a DI and then I'll just process it. And then if I like my performance, I can still just reamp it. And, you know, once that's laid down already. But yeah, I definitely tend to go towards like real amps.
Yeah. If I'm in the computer, but that's just because I'm like, I feel like it's because I'm a bass player. So like I've never had to actually buy a guitar amp to like do performances. So like I've just gotten used to like doing it with like the virtual amp sims. I just got the neural, not just, I got it like a bunch of months ago, the Corey Wong Neural DSP. I don't know if you checked that one out.
No, I haven't.
And it's just like, it sounds so good. And I'm just like, okay, like a whole record was like, that was the sound of like a song I made. And it's just cool that they're getting better. But
they definitely sound amazing. Like for this thing that I told you I was working on last week, I had to like lay down some stuff on my home one day that I had to stay at home before they came over to work. And I was just kind of like writing charts, and I just like literally plug my guitar through like my Apollo and just use like the Fender amp in there. And it's just like, shit sounds great, man. Like, you know, if it's making you feel what you're doing, that's all that matters, right?
Right. But there is what to be said, I mean, apparently, about like, you know, air, you know, leaving the speaker, hitting the mic. So
yeah.
So Fern, let's move over to the sauce segment, and we could talk about a track that you worked on. People kind of hear what you're working on. So you sent me a track called "A Fresh New Bleed of Skyline" by 60. So let's have a listen to that for about 90 seconds, and we'll talk about it. Sound cool?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Fernando. That sounds amazing.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, it's like such a lush soundscape, and I love the top end on the drums. Like I feel like they're bright, but in a very cool way. And like the low end also is hitting, like I was mentioning earlier. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about that track. What went into it? What's the story?
Yeah, so I came to this project. The band is 3 people. It's Matthew Stevens, who plays guitar with Esperanza, and that's how I got to this thing. Corey King singing and also playing some synths and guitars, and Eric Doob on drums. And like I said, like Matt and I are friends, and we have worked on a lot of stuff. And at some point, he played one of the tracks, and I really liked it. So I told him that I wanted to be involved. And he sent me one song to mix, and that one I pushed so much that I actually ended up getting some production credit because of like extra stuff that I added that just took it to like a different place. But yeah, this song was mostly mixing. Like they had a vibe going on, and I just wanted to like keep expanding on that and bring a little bit of what I do into it. And I feel like, you know, Eric, he recorded his drums at his little studio, and they sounded great already. Like you could hear that kind of like dry vibe, like, you know, with all the towels and super tight but like punchy. Corey's vocals are incredible. Matt's playing is super tasty. So yeah, it was just expanding on that and just kind of like making it even vibier and like add a couple cool effects and throws here and there. But yeah, it all starts with a good song and good production.
Yeah. Who did the bass in the end?
I think the bass was Corey. No, sorry, it probably was Matt.
Who's the guitar player as well.
Yeah.
Nice. So it was mostly mixed and you kind of just enhanced the mixing, or was it?
No. I got raw tracks and I mixed it, but you know, like you could tell the direction where they wanted to take it.
Right. The tracks guided the mix.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and also because they sent me a rough mix, so I listened to the rough mix before, and I could tell, you know, it's kind of like what they were envisioning for the track. And still, like, because it's people that I have worked with, like, they allow me to like take quite a bit of like liberty with it, you know.
What would be like an example of a liberty you took on this track?
I don't know, like there's that section in the middle where the drums, like I started running through like this compressor that is out of phase, so it kind of like takes them out of like the center and push them to the side in like a weird trippy way. Or like the distortion on the background vocals that are sounding like super big and distant on the sides in the choruses. A bunch of like the reverb throws and things like that they're rough. If I remember correctly, it was definitely more dry or didn't have those kind of like ear candies, you know?
Yeah, amazing. The drums, like I mentioned, the brightness on the drums, they were like really bright. Like the snare had like this amazing top end. Do you remember what you did there?
I honestly don't. I did that a couple of years ago. Like if you actually want to know, I'm happy. Well, I can't open the session because we're recording, okay. But I use a lot of like parallel compression on drums. I feel like it's a way that I get them to sound big without sounding like I'm killing, like, you know, taking the life out of the drums. So I use a lot Fatso, the Empirical Labs Fatso to do that. I use like the Chandler limiter. And I think back then when I was doing that project, I was mixing through my Monster compressor by Loop Throtter. And that is like a tube compressor, but it has an extra stage of saturation that you can add. And I was getting a lot of like that grit and punch from that.
Got it. Yeah, I've heard good things about the Monster, but I guess you're not using it anymore.
I love it. I use it to record quite a bit, to be honest, but it's hard to... I don't know if it's an issue with my unit that I have to get it checked now, but like when I'm calibrating, every time I calibrate it, it hits different. And I'm starting to hear like a difference between like the frequency response from the left and the right side.
Yeah.
And it's not something like big enough that it will throw like a mix off, adjusting my like OCD side. Like when I'm seeing that as I'm calibrating my gear and I see the settings are all weird between left and right, it just makes me not trust it so much.
Yeah.
Not because it sounds bad, because I can get it to sound good, but it's just like I'm nervous that the recall won't come back properly, you know?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. So I guess you have to like print the way in or whatever.
Yeah, so I might use it still on drums or something or in a couple elements and just print it back in. But before I was using it as kind of like my mix bus compressor, you know? And I definitely, unfortunately, right now with the way at least my unit is, I can't trust it enough to do that. But it's an amazing sound compressor. It sounds so good, and you can do so much with it.
Yeah, but I guess the Neve is working for you now, right? So
well, the Neve is a summing mixer. It's not a compressor.
Oh, it's a summing mixer.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you don't have an analog compressor.
No, I'm doing that in the box.
Nice. What's your current summing, two-bus compressor?
Lately, I've been using the SSL, UAD's SSL. And from that, I'm going to the Shadow Hills, also UAD. Barely touching it, like I use both like discrete and like both modes, and like I'm not even hitting 1 dB on either of them. It's just like to add that color, more than for the compression itself.
Yeah. Anything on the low end? Do you remember what you did on the low end there with like the bass?
I might have had like this subharmonic processor going on in the bass just to like make it extra deep. I don't remember if it was low end there or just like some sort of like DBX 500 plugin, to like help add a little bit of that extra body to it. But yeah, I felt like, like in that song, like it allowed me to like, there's also so much space, right? That it allowed me to like play with the kick and the bass relationship to like make them both, take their space and still sound at least what I felt like it was badass.
Yeah, totally. They both had a space, and you weren't like sidechaining it or anything. It was just like, I guess, an EQ.
No, that I remember, to be completely honest.
No, it didn't sound sidechain to me. It sounded like you gave each of them their place, like, and they're both prominent and hitting, So
cool. I honestly don't remember doing any sidechaining on this one.
Yeah, I kind of go back and forth of whether I like to sidechain or not, like on rock mixes. Like obviously EDM is different than, I think usually I kind of like to leave them both without the sidechain.
Yeah, so something that I started doing recently. And it was just because I was mixing something where I was having a lot of trouble with that, like finding the space for both things. I started doing sidechaining my bass, but not a compressor, like a dynamic EQ, like in Pro Q3. So I can just like trigger, like I found like, let's say like what my root frequency is from my bass drum. And then I would like dog that in the bass whenever the kick was hitting. And to me, for some reason, it works better to my ears than just a compressor and bringing everything down, because I feel like that still gets the bass to cut through the whole thing, but it just dips that little space for like the tone of the kick to come through. And I don't know, I've been liking that lately.
I've tried that with what's it called, the neutron compressor, where you can kind of do like a dynamic EQ sidechain.
That's an Isotope plugin, right?
Yeah, the Isotope. And I the Pro Q felt a little slow to me for that, but maybe I should try it again. Like I felt like it wasn't quite like as instant as I would have wanted it, maybe. But maybe I should try it again. You do it with the Pro Q, not the Pro MB, the Pro Q.
Yeah, with Pro Q. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
It didn't feel particularly slow to me, But again, it's like a newer thing that I just started playing with. So maybe if I'm mixing something faster, like it wouldn't work.
Yeah, I try it again. I need to try it again. Done. always inspiration and thoughts of things to do. Yeah, friend, this has been such a great conversation. So great to meet you and to hear about your story.
You too, man. Thank you for inviting me.
And but before I let you go, I do want to ask you one final question that I ask everybody on the show.
Yeah, of course.
And I know like Travis also has his final question of the show. But so just like looking back on your journey, was there something that you maybe did or maybe didn't do that you'd want to impart on your earlier self and be like, hey, Fern, keep at that. That's the thing that's going to get you where you want to go. Or maybe it's like, Fern, don't do that. If you don't do it, you're going to get to where you want to go faster. What would be that one piece of advice you would tell your earlier self?
Honestly, I feel like those things that I mentioned, that I'm good at staying in contact with people, like it doesn't mean that I write them all the time, but every now and then I'll email people that, like I've worked with in the